Hello, Andre.
Hello,
Could you,
Wojtek.
sorry, but just switch off your camera and mute yourself because I'm starting to broadcast, okay? Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Wojtek from Eurosite. Our webinar will start in a minute. Before we start, I'd like to note that this webinar will be recorded and shared offline after the meeting. Your mics and cameras are off, so please sit back comfortable and enjoy our Hello, everybody. I can see that you are still joining to the webinar, so it will take a minute to wait for the others. We'll start soon because I can see that people are just joining, so it's better to wait for all of you to start with our today's meeting. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second Eurosite webinar. I'm Wojtek Mróz, and I will host this webinar in behalf of Eurosite Secretariat. Here on your screen, you've got some basic rules of our webinar. So just remember that our webinar will be recorded and shared. Please send your questions through the Q&A button, which is down on your right side. You can also use chat to introduce yourself, paste important links, etc. Your microphones and cameras are off. And I have to say that I'm really glad to see on the list of attendees a number of newcomers and also quite a big group of attendees from the last meeting. We received a very positive feedback after the first webinar. Thanks for that. And just remember that the recording from the last webinar is already available on our website. There were also a lot of questions to our panelists. We will upload the Q&A report soon tomorrow on Friday. You will find it in the same place as the recording. Please remember that our meeting is recorded and will be shared later on. I'd like to encourage you to use this this box, this Q&A box. It will be open during whole webinar. You can type there all your questions related to the webinar and our network. The panelists will try to answer it all the time, and all unanswered questions will be recorded, and you will get the answer after the webinar. There's also chat box on your left side. You can introduce yourself there or paste important links and information that might be useful for all. It's also open all the time. Okay, you get some basic information, and now hello. And I'd like to tell you that just 2 words. I'm botanist and ecologist, and I started my work as GIS technician 20 years ago, and we had to cope with very expensive software with very limited functions. Now all of them are available also in open source software, such as Quantum GIS, now called simply Qgis. It is free, and it's really not difficult to start, even with for non-professionals, as e.g. for site managers. That's why we asked today Marina Szkunca to tell us more about it. But just before that, I would like to ask my colleague from Eurosite Secretariat to tell you a little more about our network, about Eurosite. And Christian will speak to you directly from Tilburg in the Netherlands. Hello, Christian.
Hello, everybody. Good morning from the Netherlands. Well, from close to Tilburg, as we are all working from home. Well, I will give you a very brief presentation of Eurosite. And my apologies for those who heard it last time, but I'm sure there are some new people who still haven't heard it. So this is for their benefit. I will start my presentation. So Eurosite, we are a European network, European broad network of land conservation practitioners. And what we do is we are providing opportunities for these practitioners, site managers, to network and exchange experience on practical site management. And we have been doing this since 1989. So last year we have celebrated our 30th birthday. How do we do it concretely? Well, our members, they share their knowledge and experience and contacts and influence with each other. And through these international contacts and knowledge exchange, they gain support and benefit for their professional development. As a network, we try to provide guidance to our members, organize meetings and workshops and training on topics relevant for their work. We also run several thematic working groups based on the needs of our members. We try to put together project partnerships, which we sometimes join ourselves. As a network, we are also disseminating information, and we represent our members and their problems and needs at the European level meetings, and try to raise awareness at the policy level for the problems that site managers are facing. We are in a way unique organization because we work with both governmental and non-governmental organizations and individuals across all kinds of topics and across Europe. And everything we do is always with a focus on practical aspects of day-to-day site management. And so also this webinar today is also very practical and should provide you some ideas if you are new to using GIS in your daily work. We try to actively involve all of our members, and basically the bottom line is the more active you are in the network, the more benefits you can get out of it. This is a short overview of the working groups we are running now. One is looking at ecosystem services and how a site manager can integrate this concept in their daily work. And actually this idea of using GIS has started from that working group, because maybe that's the next step in after this webinar, but you can actually quite easily use GIS tools to produce very simple but very useful maps of ecosystem services of your site. Then we have Wetlands and Climate Change Working Group, focusing on something called natural climate buffers, which is a sort of nature-based solution to climate change adaptation. Of course, as a network of site managers, one of our core strengths and where we have a lot of knowledge in our network is management of sites and producing high quality management plans. Remote Sensing Group, which again brings you this series of webinars. And we're also looking at peatland restoration, because peatlands are also increasingly important habitat group in light of climate change. Not to forget, we are a network of people, and this is our strength, and this is at the moment, well, actually, this is from the last time, 60 members. I think at the moment we have actually 62. So it shows that we are growing, and we'd like to see that. Yeah, this is more or less all I wanted to say. If you have more questions, you can, well, either ask today or feel free to contact us through email. And that is all I had to say. And now enjoy let's get to the topic and why we are here today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. It was a nice introduction. Some of you have already heard about that, but maybe for new people, it's also important to know where we are from and what we are doing here. And our next speaker, and in fact, the chair of our webinar will be Clive Harford. It is important to say that he is also a chair of our remote sensing support group that together with our ecosystem services working group that they prepare and help us to prepare this webinar, and I would like really thank them all for this kind of cooperation. And just to say 2 words about Clive, he's a very good ecologist, and it is very important that he's such a person that he always he's always trying to remember and to notice to us that we are talking to site managers, that even if you are professionals, experts and specialists, we should keep a very close contact with people working in the ground. And generally, as Chris said before, it is our mission, the mission of Eurosite network, to build a kind of bridge between experts and site managers, and that's why we are here also trying to show you some opportunities and possibilities in GIS software. So, Clive, are you there? Can I give you my mic, my virtual mic?
Okay.
Hello, Clive.
Hello, Wojtek. Hello, everybody. Okay, so what I will do now, I will sort of share our way through the rest of the webinar. I'm going to start with a brief introduction to the Remote Sensing Support Group, how it came about and what its role is. Again, I apologize if some of you have heard this before, but some of you certainly won't have. And then I will hand over to Marina, a person who is going to give the presentation on QGIS. And finally, when Marina has finished her presentation, we will have a Q&A session with a group of panelists who will be able to pick up your questions. It's important that you put your questions into the Q&A box and not into the chat, because if they go into the chat, we will not pick them up, because the panelists will be focusing on the Q&A, the questions that go into the Q&A. So please, if you have questions, put them into there, and we will. Some of them will be picked up as we go through the presentation by panel members, and other other questions we will pick up in a direct answer session at the end. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the Eurosite Remote Sensing Support Group. Eurosite has hosted 4 Natura 2000 monitoring workshops over the past 8 years. The first of these was in Wales, and then we held one in Catalonia, and one in the Czech Republic, and last year in Spain. And the one in 2019, which was in Sanlúcar de Barrameda, was on the roles of remote sensing in nature conservation. One of the recommendations from this workshop was that Eurosite should form a remote sensing support group for nature conservation practitioners to bridge the gap between the remote sensing technicians and the people working on the ground, who in many cases are not familiar enough with what's available to know how to access it. So that is how this group came into being, as a consequence of those discussions at the end of the workshop. As a response to that, we have started to set up what we are calling information exchange hubs in a range of countries and regions across Europe. At the moment, we have 13. So at present, there's one in Belgium, Croatia, Czech Republic, Germany, Spain, Greece, Italy, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Poland, Sweden, Slovakia, and the UK. Now, it is not everywhere, and ideally we would have these hubs set up in as many countries as possible. But we're at least trying to make sure we have one of these hubs in each region at least, so it's not too far for people to travel. And of course, the advantage of being able to have these locally is you will be able to hold them in local languages also. As far as the hubs themselves are concerned, typically these will comprise 2 remote sensing technicians, at least 1 ecologist, and the data manager also. If you would be interested in contributing to one of these hubs, or indeed setting up a new one in a different country that isn't covered yet, please either leave your details in chat or contact Eurosite via their website, and I'm sure they will get back to you on this. The aim of these hubs is to hold at least 1, but possibly 2 face-to-face learning events in each region every year. And as I said, wherever possible, in the local language. Each event is planned to have a morning session focusing on a key area of remote sensing, and then an afternoon session where the technicians present will field questions in a sort of surgery format. So the delegates who attend will be able to ask technicians about the problems they are having and way to resolve them. So it'll be 50-50, a sort of learning sort of session in the morning, and then an interactive sort of learning session in the afternoon. We were hoping to start these sessions in some regions this summer, but COVID-19 made this impossible. So these have been delayed until, hopefully just until next year, till 2021. We see the webinars at the moment as being our first step towards engaging with the conservation practitioners. So that is what we are starting to do now, and these will continue throughout the summer. And at that point now, I think it's time for me to introduce our speaker. So our speaker today is Marina Škunca, and she is an ecologist who leads a terrestrial ecosystem research group at GeoNatura in Zagreb. Her work includes mapping and monitoring of flora and habitats, developing risk assessments for alien plant species, biodiversity area assessments, ecosystem services assessments, and she also produces baseline habitat maps combining field data and orthophoto interpretation in GIS. So she is well qualified to give this introduction. So at this point, I will hand over to Marina. Hi,
hello.
Marina.
Okay, hi, Clive. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Zagreb. Firstly, Clive, thank you for your kind introduction. And secondly, I would like to thank Eurosite for that trust in my abilities. a half an hour introduction to any GIS is kind of a challenge. So let's not waste any time. I just have to share the presentation with you. Okay, just a second. And here we go. Cool, we're started. So here you can see the presentation overview. We'll start with setting the scene, then we'll jump to our today's assignment and program itself. And the rest of the presentation is here mostly as a quick reminder for you later on. However, it is important to emphasize that the purpose of this webinar is not to give you a comprehensive overview of all the functions and possibilities of QGIS, but to get you started, to help you understand better what options are at your disposal, give you some confidence, maybe nudge you to seek both examples of good practice and advice of fellow colleagues. Thus, we'll jump right in, skipping most of the theory, which can be found on the internet anyway. And yeah, there is a slight possibility that some of the steps will be a bit too fast, but don't you worry, both the presentation and recording of our webinar will be available online, so you can check them again in your own time and at your own pace. So, as you probably know, GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. The field has considerably evolved within the last 5 decades, and nowadays the GIS serve as powerful tools for data input, management, analysis, and presentation. And with a myriad of analytical functions, it helps us reveal patterns, reveal some trends and relationships about both natural and human phenomena and activities. This works perfectly for site managers as well. Namely, GIS can help you gather and analyze available data, prepare the fieldwork and extract the GPS data afterwards, use the satellite or drone data, and map various features. And maybe one of the best thing about QGIS, it enables you to communicate certain problems or results with other stakeholders, for instance, by preparing maps. And the great news is, over time, GIS applications have become easier and more intuitive to use. As Wojtek said, nowadays, you do not need an expensive training course just to get started in GIS. There are a lot of available training materials and guides online that can help beginners and casual users to get a first glimpse and start using GIS for at least some basic operations, like this webinar, for example. So why QGIS? As Wojtek said, it's a free and open source GIS application. It has a wide range of users and strong community of developers, and this results in continuously growing number of capabilities. But it also ensures that answer for probably any question encountered along the way can be found on the World Wide Web. Moreover, algorithms developed and are used in other freeware GIS software are also available through the QGIS interface, providing even more capabilities, but also saving you some time that you would otherwise need to explore and get used to other applications and their interfaces. So here you can find some info and the necessary link for application download. But what is important to highlight is that for a new user, it is always better not to install the latest, but the latest long-term release version, so-called LTR, since it's the most stable one. And we move slowly on to today's assignment. Our today's goal is to produce a map, namely this map. Probably quite a familiar situation. You're planning the survey on your project site and looking at some old data. For the purpose of this presentation, you're managing your 2 Natura sites and you're looking at the floristic data. Your plan is to assess current situation, communicate with your colleagues, probably some other stakeholders as well, what needs to be done and what locations need to be explored in the next period. And what better way than to visualize it with a nice map developed in QGIS, which is easy to use and share among the interested parties, and where you can be sure that everything is georeferenced and corresponds to the situation on the ground. But before we open the QGIS, let's take a quick look on some basic terms we'll be using today. What you can see on this slide, especially on the left part of the slide, are various layers. So these are the various layers. Layers are basically data sets where the group of georeferenced features is stored together with their attributes. So features are, you can see it maybe here. Features are different objects or events represented in a map. It's basically anything you can see in the landscape. It could be, for instance, species observations. It could be also roads, some land use classes. It could be also be houses, rivers, even floods. All the objects or events that are represented then in a GIS application. Attributes, on the other hand, are text or numerical information that describes these features, and you can find it in such an attribute table. As you can see on the slide, there is a slight difference between vector and raster layers that you need to keep in mind. So raster data, you can see the zoomed in version on the right side of the slide. They are stored as a grid of values, matrices. Thus, if you zoom in enough, as we did here, you will be able to see individual cells, so-called pixels, of the data grid that makes up the raster image. They are geocoded by pixel resolution and the XY coordinates of a corner pixel of the layer. And the most common examples are definitely topographic, satellite, and digital orthophoto maps, but it can basically be any georeferenced image. You can even georeference some images through QGIS, for instance, images of, that is, maps of some spatial plans, and you can do it by yourself. It takes some time and effort, but it's doable. So this whole grid situation, it doesn't happen with vectors. Vector data is stored as a series of coordinate pairs. That is, they're made up of one or more interconnected vertices, nodes, basically. So no matter how much you zoom in, they won't break into a grid. As you can see on the left side of the slide, there are three main vector feature types. Here you can see point, which is basically a feature shown just as XY location. It can be, for instance, a meeting place, bird observation, bus stop. Then we have lines, which are basically two vertices, two coordinate pairs that are interconnected by a segment, this line between them. And for instance, roads, rivers, hedgerows, those are the features that are usually depicted as lines. On the other hand, polygons, or sometimes also called areas, are closed shapes defined by interconnected vertices. What is important to mention that they have a certain area, so they're filled in. Otherwise, you will just have a polyline. And the first and the last vertex is basically the same one. Some of the examples of the polygon features are, for instance, lake, some patch of forest or grassland. It can be also a buffer zone around a rare bird nest. It can be a lot of things. So each type is mostly still stored in a different separate level. But which one to choose between the three of them, it will also depend on the desired scale. For instance, roads can be depicted either as lines, or if you need to zoom in the area and your site you're managing, it can be also depicted as polygons. One of the most popular vector layer types is Shapefile, and you'll see a few of those here today. So if I mention a shapefile, that's basically a vector file, and it can be either point or line or polygon feature. Since, at least at the beginning, you'll probably use rasters as backgrounds without inherently changing them, we'll focus today more on the vectors, which you'll be using quite a bit more. So, okay, now we can move to the application itself, because my main idea is to make this a practical session. And let me just share a new window with you. Here we are. Cool. So, welcome to the QGIS interface. Here you can see the menu toolbar. You can see some windows called panels. You can also see a status bar, sorry. And you can see various toolbars. Sorry, I'm still learning how to point slowly mouse around. So yeah, this is like toolbars, and here on both of the other sides. And here you can see a map view. That's basically a place where all your layers come to life, or at least shapes and colors. So this is probably a good time to mention few things. First, don't be alarmed if your screen, when you open the QGIS, doesn't look like this, if it looks a little bit different. Since I've had previous versions of QGIS installed on this computer, this new version automatically picks up on all the customization I've done before. So it's already arranged in a way I usually have it. Second, the first encounter with this wild beast can be a bit overwhelming. There are so many icons, cute, somewhat familiar icons, but overwhelming nevertheless. There can also be a lot of weird panels open. So don't worry, it can be easily tamed, and you can look how I do it here. So I can close unnecessary panels by clicking with the left mouse button on the X here until I'm left with only the layers panel open. I can also drag and drop different toolbars, even those that are on the side, and arrange them in whichever way I want them. I can also, by clicking on the right mouse button, I can also choose which panels I can have open, as well as toolbars. So I can basically switch some of them, like this. I lost one here. Or you can add some of them, like database. I hope you've seen it. It came around somewhere here. So yeah, as I said, you can arrange it according to your preferences and confidence. By the way, I haven't mentioned it before. I'm sorry, I'm switching between two screens. So sometimes I'll be looking at a bigger screen to have a better overview of the icons. So yeah, the most useful toolbars that you can have open at this stage will certainly be the project toolbar, which is this one, which you can use to open and save different projects. Then it's the attributes toolbar, so you can easily identify or select desired features. Of course, there is also a map navigation toolbar, which actually enables you to use different options to zoom in and out in the map view. Well, let me just show you here. At the same time, the most simple way to zoom in, wait for it, or zoom out, is to use the scroll button on the mouse. We also have here Manage Layers toolbar, which allows you to add different types of layers. While we have opened this layer here, I can also point you to the status bar I mentioned before. Please look at the coordinates and look at the scale at this moment. So when I move a mouse around, you can see how the coordinates are changing. That's because everything here in the map view is geo-referenced. So it's coordinated with the on-the-ground situation on Earth. And when you look at the scale here, if I zoom in, the scale changes, as well as if I zoom out. This tells you on which scale you're looking at your area of interest. Oh, there's also one other, oh, here is the database layer I added, toolbar, database toolbar, we switched it off. So yeah, another toolbar that you could maybe use in this period is also digitizing toolbar, but everything else can basically be added later on. Yeah. So as you can see on the menu toolbar, the QGIS works with projects. You can save your work as such. For instance, let's save this one. So we go with the left mouse button and click on the Save As. I hope you see the folder. I hope the folder is open and you can see it. So basically, I just find the location where I want to save it. For instance, here. Let's give it a name. Eurosite, webinar, and today's date, 2020, June. When you're naming either projects or files, please remember to avoid blank spaces or diacritics. It can lead to some troubles later on, so it's better to just skip them. Okay, so let's bring in some data, although I already have some of them here. We'll show you some different ways in which you can add a layer to your project. So if you already have a project, if you already have a layer on your computer, you can drag it by clicking on the file with the left mouse button and drop it onto the map view. This works for both vector and raster layers, and that's exactly how I added the old sampling sites before. Give me please a second to share with you the folder, because there's something important I need to tell you about the shapefiles here. As you can notice here, each vector layer, and I'll just select the first vector layer here, okay, and I'll pull it a bit here. As you can see, each vector layer consists of several components. So all those files are basically one vector layer. You need at least SHP, SHX, PRJ, and DBF components of the shapefile to be able to use it. So if you are sharing the shapefile with colleagues, be sure to include them all. At the same time, when drag and dropping it to the map view, we just click with the left button on the SHP one and drop it, as I mentioned, on the map view. Okay, good thing, since we are having the folder open, good thing to remember is that all those components need to be together in the same folder for the shapefile to work, obviously. Similar, the files need to stay in the same folder throughout the work on that project. If you move files to another folder, to another location, the pathway, this link between the files and the project will be broken, and QGIS won't be able to find them. It's not irreversible. It doesn't even have to be a big drama. However, it can take some time to chase them all down, especially if you moved a lot of files to different locations. And some of the styles can be lost and you'll have to set them again. So it's kind of better to think in advance. Okay, we'll go back to the application now. Power slide. Here we are. Sorry, I keep getting confused with all of them. Who would have thought that the Zoom application will prove to be a little bit more challenges than the GIS? So, okay, what I need to tell you, another option. So apart from drag and drop option, you can also add vector layer through this icon here, or the raster layer here. So let's just add additional layer for a moment. So for encoding, I choose Windows 1250 because of the Croatian language symbols, diacritics. So just to have them all like they should look like in the attribute tables. Now I need to set where desktop. I need to find my shape. I hope you're able to see this folder. So yeah, I have already old sampling sites, so I'll add Natura sites here. And I said add. Okay, close. you can see the shapefile here. I'll make visible the all sampling sites as well. So another thing to mention, sometimes, well, actually it should be most of the times, when adding the layers, you'll be asked to define coordinate reference systems, so-called CRS. This system basically defines how does projected map in your GIS is related to real places on Earth. Wait, let me show you how it looks like. So yeah, you can change it afterwards. So I'll just show you how the window that will automatically pop open will look like. So basically, many countries have already agreed upon their official reference systems, and available maps and data sets usually have their CRS indicated in their supporting documentations, metadata. For example, in Croatia, we use this one, HTRS 96 Croatia TM. So this is the one that I would usually select in my case. And need to change anything, so I'll just close it. So if you don't have a layer on your computer, sometimes you can bring it in through web feature services, which is this icon here, or web map service. The first one can be saved later on as a vector file, while other one works as a raster. More and more governmental agencies, at least in Croatia, but I believe in Europe as well, are providing their data in this way, and it can come really handy. But for instance, there is another way. If you have data accompanied with the coordinates, for example, from some old or from some survey you've already undertaken, or some old Excel database, some paper maybe, you can use this icon to pull them as text or comma delimited file, and then save it as a shapefile later on. Basically, I can show you quickly how to save something as a shapefile. It's a right mouse button. You go to the export and save feature as. It will ask you for the file name and location, just like we saved the project before. You can set your encoding if you wanna. You can change. That's how you can actually convert between CRS sometimes. But you can set your CRS if it's not already set, and all you have to do is click OK afterwards. And voila, you have your vector layer with all the basic components I've told you before. So yeah, while we're speaking about maps from other savers and providers, there is another quite useful option. We said that QGIS has a continuously developing capabilities, more and more capabilities developed with each version of QGIS. And one of those capabilities are basically enabled by plugins. They add this additional functionality to QGIS, and there is a collection of them already available for you that can be installed directly from the here. So you go to plugins and manage and install plugins, and it will open this system. So if you know what plugin you're looking for, or you have a basic idea of what the keywords could be, you can try and type it in. Otherwise, you just have to scroll through them and maybe see on this right side what they are about. What I want to show you here is a quick map service, which is a really useful plugin. See here, you can read a bit more about it in this panel. I already have it installed, but here you can basically, I think it's here, just click on the install plugin, and it will be fetched from the repository to your QGIS and stay there until you uninstall it. And it basically provides quick access to various data sets and base maps. For instance, Bing Maps, Google Maps, and so on. So I'll just show you how it goes. It's basically how I bring in this Google satellite map before. So when you install these quick map services, you can go to the web. You can find them here. You probably won't have all of them already. You need to go to the settings first. And then, wait a moment. Yeah, you go to the more services and click on Get Contributed Pack. You save them afterwards, and then you can see more or less all of them. So as I said, I used this plugin to bring in the Google satellite map, and I'll also bring now the Openstreetmap Standard, just for you to see how it works like. So it basically, they just pull it to the map view and set it at the correct place on Earth, georeference space. So here is a good opportunity for me to tell you a bit more about this layer panel, or to explain you how this all works. As you can see here, I added OSM standard map, and it should be visible, but you cannot see it here. That's basically because whichever layer is on top of the layers panel, it will also be on top on this map view. It will also be on top of the map you produce afterwards. So what to do, you just click with the left mouse button and drag it over it. And voila, now you have a completely different map available here. So there's another really useful thing about the open standard maps. There is also another plugin that allows you to download its data. So everything basically you can see here, the roads, the railroads, the buildings, which you would see if I zoom a bit more in it. It can basically all be downloaded, and that can really help you if you're lacking some basic data in your work. Just please remember, when using different providers and their services, different sources, check the terms and conditions, terms and conditions of their use. So finally, we are coming to the last possibility to add a layer that I'll show you today. As you probably guess, you can also make your own vector layer. For instance, I want to produce a layer of this railroad here. So I'll just switch off the Natura site so I can see it better and show you how to quickly develop your own vector layer. It basically works for all of the features in the same way. So new shapefile layer. First of all, I'll define its name, just to be sure that I'm saying it to the right one. Okay. So file name, let's call it railroads. It's usually a good idea to specify the projection, this coordinate reference system you're using, to pull the date, because you'll probably have a lot of layers once you start working in the QGIS. And it's also a good idea to put your initials, because when 2 months pass by, it's sometimes hard to remember, and you're working in a team, who made which layer and which projection they are in. So yeah, that's basically all I need to set here. I'm making a railroad, so I'll choose the line feature here, and we are using creation official coordinate reference system, so I'll have it here. That's basically all I need to do before I get it here. So yeah, now I have railroads, but basically it's completely empty layer. I need to add some information into it. So I have to click on it with the left mouse button to select it. That's basically how you select all the layers here. And I'll use this little pencil that says toggle editing. Then I'll go and set add line feature. Otherwise it would be add a polygon or add a point feature. I'll click it on, and it's a quite simple thing. So I'm producing vertices, and the software is producing lines between them. So we just the left mouse button, click here. And it's good to have more vertices, because then you can follow the line more easily. So yeah, click, click, wait for it, click, click. And for instance, if I make a mistake like here, I can go with the backspace and rectify it. If I'm completely unsatisfied and want to start over, I can press escape and we'll move on. If I want to finish producing this line, I'll just have to click the right mouse button and he will ask me for some ID. You don't have to put it in, but for the names, for the simplicity's sake, let's just add one. And if I switch off the map, you can now see the line we've produced. Sorry, this one will be easier. This doesn't have to be end. I can also click once again, go through the same process. Oh, this is a good example. I cannot do it because I haven't selected the proper layer. So he cannot do this one to the map. So I have to select the railroads again. And now when I click, yep, here we go again. You can see this, I hope you can see this red dotted line, which says that something's in production. One. So if you are using this in, for instance, this scale, it looks like it's quite a perfect match of the railroad. But if you zoom into it, you see that there are some problems with it, that it's not perfectly georeferenced. As I said, depending on the scale in which you want to produce a map, you want to make this layer at that scale as well. So it can follow the feature you want to depict. When I'm finished with it, I just click, first, sorry, I can save layer. If I haven't done that, he would ask me anyway. And I switch off the little pencil. I just put it aside. I said, I'm finished drawing. So it's that simple. So I mentioned you about this layer levels, so I don't need to go through this again. I'm just checking the notes to see if I forget to tell you something. No, basically that's it. So, okay, now that we have few layers here, let me just show you a few useful things about the attributes, their connected attributes. As we said, we can look them through the attributes table. So if I select, for instance, all sampling sites, I go to this icon that looks like a table, say Open Attribute Table. You can see it here now. There are some site IDs, year of the data, X and Y coordinates, source and species listed here. So the cool thing, the cool part is if you press this little pencil again, you can make some changes. You can either fill or change the data. You can even, for instance, delete. If you're selected, you can delete it with this. You can also, let me just deselect it so I don't mess anything up. You can also add some fields, some columns. You can also delete some of them quite easily. And you can use it to sort. For instance, if you click on it, you can sort it according to certain attribute, certain value. And there is this really amazing tool, Field Calculator, and it has quite a lot of options, really a lot of them. And it has this amazing selection, could demand basically a whole new webinar to present them. So we won't even try it at this point, but it's something worth exploring, trust me. Anyways, don't forget to save the edits if you've made some. And if you're going out, if you're stop editing it, just switch off the pencil one. And we can close the table now. So, of course, that's not all the fun you can have with the vector layers in QGIS. For instance, if you take a double click on your layer, on the selected layer, you'll get to open the layer properties. And here you can, for example, change the symbology of your layer or add some labels, read some information, read about the source, sometimes even find some information that you need about the layer. So basically, what I want to do now is quickly change the way our layers look at the moment because they're quite dull and they're not easy to distinguish from the background map. So If I want to depict sample sites, but without going into which species were recorded where, I'll simply change the color or shape of this single symbol. So I'll click with the left mouse button on the color. I say, let's think pink today. It's a quite good color to see it on the map. And maybe let's change its size to 3 points. It is a little bit bigger now. So we'll add it here, and I can, with the right mouse button, I can open these possibilities and say, let's zoom to the layer. Oh, so now you can see them. Since they are under the Natura site, I'll just pull them over. Now you can see all of them here. On the other hand, if I, for instance, want to depict differently our two Natura sites, I can change the symbology type to categorized symbol, like this, and then set the value which I want to different them through. In this case, it can be a site name. I can change the color. For the simplicity's sake, I'll just choose one of the color ramps, and I say classify. So here you can see that each site now has a different color to depict it. You'll always have this additional one open, but you can easily delete it either here or later on in the legend. If I say apply, you can see how it changes. Zoom to layer. We have now two of our sites here. So just since we're going to produce a map, I'll just quickly add the labels for sample sites so we can see their codes and which site is basically which. So again, double click, I'll go to the labels, set them on single labels in this case, and I want site ID to be the value shown with the label. Text, more or less, I'll just make it a little bit bigger. Sorry, bigger, I said, to make it more readable later on. I'll set a buffer. That's basically the white space around the text. You'll see it on the map. It just helps you read it more easily. And for placement, I'll set that I want some offset so it doesn't cover the point, but to be a little bit more offsetted of it. You see it now, how it looks like. So if I zoom in, you can see that each sample site now has its own label. So we'll produce a map with a Google satellite. I just switch off the railroad because we won't be needing this one, this layer. And just to make our layers a bit more visible, okay, obviously I can change their color as well, but sometimes it can be useful to change the opacity, transparency of the map. So it's also a double click on the raster layer, and you just dial down a bit the opacity. For instance, let's put it at 70%, and it will be quite faster if I just type it in. Okay, you see that the Google map is a little bit, oh, maybe it was too much. Let's put it back to the 85%. For instance, yeah. Now all the layers are nice and visible, and it won't be that much of a problem to discern them. Okay, so now we basically have our layers ready, and we can produce our map. So let's go either to project and to the new print layout, or you can find it on the project toolbar. It will ask you for a name. Even if you do not enter one, it will be okay, but let's put it Natura site here, and sampling, because it will all be about sampling. Okay, so I get another screen shared. And the both of them will be open, and if you need something changed, you can do it still up until the time you lock the layers. So if for some reason you don't see this screen, somebody please let me know. Okay, so first of all, it's more or less the same style as the main interface looked like. You still have some different panels, and you still have some different toolbars, and the menu bar, obviously. So I can switch off the panel. I won't need them. I'll need just the layout and item properties for this task. I won't change any toolbars here, but basically we'll be mostly using this side of the toolbar. And in order to be sure that I'll produce a map of the size I want, I can go to the page setup. For some reason, it constantly switches off to the letter, so I'll switch it to the A4 format, but you can also set your own custom values. You can switch from portrait to the landscape as well. So to produce a map, I first have to add it, and I'll use this icon, which adds a new map to the screen. These blue lines will appear in order to show you where to put and how to align the map, how to do it more easily. So as you can see, I added the map and it automatically connects with the original interface, original map view, and just shows you whatever you had there. We'll add some map elements here, and we'll basically arrange the map to suit our own needs. So first of all, I'll add a legend. I mean, the whole order doesn't really matter that much. So I'll add a legend here. Oh, two main things to mention here. Sorry, before adding the legend. But just give me a second first to arrange this so I can explain it better. I'll just, sorry. It will take some short time. Okay. So this is basically our new map now, and this will be the legend, much more nicely arranged and designed later on. So this icon here enables you to select or move different map items around the canvas. Let's call this canvas. The other one actually enables you to move the item content. So with this one, I have to click on the map, and then I can use this one to change the map extent, or even to zoom in, zoom out. So basically I can change the scale with it. So yeah, when I want to change something, I need to use the first select move item. So first of all, I will click on the map and select the scale. And I believe that 1 versus 30,000 should be quite okay to zoom the thing I want to show you. So I can just move it around a bit so you can center it better. Now that I look at it, I should put it maybe a little bit down so you can see the other side as well. Now that I look at it, I think that I could probably, it would be better if I set some transparency to the Natura site as well. So I'll go back to the main program, just click twice, quite fast, symbology, and you can either select both of them and with the right mouse button set that you want to change opacity, and let's put it to the 70%, okay. Or you can do it by clicking on the symbol and changing it here. Apply. Yeah, now you can see that you can still see some of the features on the map. And if I pull it like this, you can see them also here. I can refresh it so you can see it better here. So we are running a bit out of time, so I'll be a bit faster now. I'll just click to the legend. I'll say that I don't want to resize it to fit the context, and I don't want the auto update. I want to have all the control. I name it like Natura sites, or even better, selected Natura sites sampling. And you can see the title appearing here. What we don't need roads anymore, and we won't use OSM standard. So I'll just go and double click on the layer. It opens this little pencil that enables you to write and change the name of the layer. So I'll just write, background map, Google satellite, and I should also attribute it accordingly. So I'll go to the Google satellite, and I know that somewhere in the metadata, I have validation, no, history links, sorry, I found it yesterday. Am I at the right one? Identification, no. Source information. It should have validation. I know that I read it yesterday. I don't know why it doesn't. Rendering? No. Metadata. You can always learn something new, but I found it yesterday. Here, contact, extent. Anyway, if you cannot find, QGIS server, sorry. So I need to attribute it in a way. So I'll just use this one, copy paste option. I'll say, okay, go back here, and we'll just put it like this. Okay, so now we have attributed it as we needed. I'll change quickly names here, because now I want them to use nice, not all connected and unreadable, all sampling sites. Okay. Natura sites. Okay. And I can also arrange it a little bit better. For instance, here you can all the imaginable options here. So I'll just go with the setting. I'll make a bit of a space after the title. I'll change the general box space just not to be all cramped up together. I can also make a space between these subgroups a bit. And basically, I can also make a bit more space between symbols just to make the legend a bit more readable. Okay, now this one, I wanted to subgroup small, lessen the spacing a bit. Okay, I want to change quickly fonts. So I'll just go and say I want it to be a bold one. And also for the subgroups, because these are the subgroups. If you're not sure, I can show you how you can check it in a second. I'll also want to make it bold just to make it more readable. So yeah, how to check if it's a subgroup. With a right mouse button, you can click here, and if you can either hide it, or you can choose which one is it, how to treat it. So I treat it as a subgroup. Okay, that's basically, it's a little bit cramped. So I'll just pull it a bit more here. And if I change the extent of the map, the scale will also be changed. So keep that in mind and change it again to 30,000. Okay, now it's nice. I need to add a scale bar because that's one of the essential elements of the map. And I can also choose some things here. For instance, I can change how it looks like. I can say that I want to have line ticks up. I can change whether do I want to see them as meters or as kilometers. And you can play with it here also with some space, fonts, display, and everything. Next thing I need to add is this north arrow. So I just pull it here, maybe make it a bit smaller. I can move them with the keyboard arrows as well. So let's just make it like this. And if you want, you can add some additional things, like for instance, another map, so we can interconnect them. You can add a picture, or you can add a label, another text label, which I'll just use quickly to write here, not the full one, sorry. So we just basically visual typing, disclaimer. And what I want to disclaim is that this map was created for educational purposes only as part of the Eurosite webinar held in June 2020. I should also add that all the layers here are not meant to depict the actual layers, because this was just quick selection of different data and types, just as an example to show you here. So I can also stretch it a bit more.
Sorry, Marina, sorry to interrupt you, but I think you've been working on the wrong screen because...
Really? You cannot see it?
We were not able to see what you were doing, I think.
Oh, I told you to tell me if that happens. Sorry. Oh, God. I told you to warn me because I think that the first time we were testing it, it automatically linked because it's in the same map. Do you see it now?
I think so. We see the map with the legend now.
Oh, so you haven't seen, oh, Jesus, I told you that if you don't see additional screen to let me on. Okay, let's do it this way. So this was the map. Here, you can edit by clicking on this icon here. You can select or move items, all map elements by clicking on this one. You can change the extent. You see the right screen now, right?
I think so.
You see the screen with the map, right?
Yes.
Okay, then you should see the right one. So with this icon, you can move item content. So if I click on it, I can move I can change the size and the shape stays the same, but the extent and the scale of the map can change with that one. That's the important one. So with this icon, I can add a new legend. So, okay, I don't want to add new legend, but if I click on the legend, you can change it here. You can add a title. You can rename all those layers by double clicking onto them. And you can change its spacing or some fonts and text formats here. You can do quite a lot of stuff here. You need to explore it a bit by yourself. This is a scale bar. I can add it with this icon, the new scale bar icon, and I can change how it looks like its style here. And I can change also whether I want to see the kilometers or the meters and which units. For instance, maybe I can show you here. I want to have like 2 ticks on the left side, and I want to have 1 on the right side. Sorry, I said 2 here. So I changed the style of the scale bar. And I can add the north arrow button by clicking here. And just, everything you want to add, just let me show you quickly. You click with the left button and spread it so it came to life here. So I'll just click on it and delete it because we already have one. And again, you can change how it looks like here, basically. There are some other options. For instance, you can zoom in, so zoom to the full screen so you can see it better. You can group items or raise and lower selected items, but that's something that it's rather intuitive and you'll catch it quickly on. I think that's basically everything you missed, and I'm really sorry for it, guys. I hope that you will not mention me if the screen doesn't change, but okay. So since this is not an image, Quantum Map is not an image file, you have to convert it either to an image like JPEG file, JPEG file, or to the PDF, like here. You go to the layout. You can also save it first as a template, so you don't have to go through everything else again. I can just save it, desktop, webinar, Natura, sites, sampling, template. I'm really sorry, guys. So yeah, it's a template now. Oh, before you're saving it or as a template, the good thing is to click on the map to lock all the layers and styles. And I actually switched off a useful panel, which is items panel, which also enables you to lock them. So if you're finished with designing one part of it, then you cannot move it anywhere. As you can see, I cannot select anything or move it around. So that's a good thing to have open again. So basically, right mouse button click items panel. So yeah, to make it as a PDF, just click on the layout and say export as a PDF. And I'll just put the date here, so we know this is the one, save. And I don't want to simplify geometries. And for everything else, it's quite a new addition. Before the Quantum didn't ask you that many questions, this came with a new version. So I haven't had time to explore options. So I'll just say that I don't want to simplify geometries and save it as a PDF. And it should be saved now. Okay, I'll try to quickly show you then. I have to switch the screen. Let's go to the folder. And this is the map we produced. Do you see a map in the PDF viewer? Since
no, we see your Explorer.
You see Explorer, but I clicked, okay, it's Explorer, then we'll go to the PDF viewer. Okay, now you should see it for sure.
Yes.
Okay, as I said, QGIS is easier, the Zoom sharing options, but okay. So we have our map, guys, and we did it. I would say that it took us less than half an hour, but there were some glitches along the way. So anyway, this is the map that's in a PDF format, and it's basically ready to be sent off. And basically, we've finished for today. So I feel a little dizzy, and I can't imagine how you are feeling with all this information overload. Glitch definitely didn't help. But anyways, I hope you found this webinar useful. Just remember, all you need is spark of curiosity and some time on your hands to explore it, the QGIS in depth. And that's why I prepared a few more finished maps just to, how should I say, just some simple examples to spark this curiosity. So, oh, this moved along, okay. So first of all, for example, through some group statistics in QGIS, you can explore the data in the desired layer. And you can see, for instance, here differences between the sampling sites regarding the number of recorded species. I added this table as a picture to the maps to communicate maybe something easier with my colleagues. The next one here. For instance, you can also add some buffer zone around your site, see how many of the sampling sites are in the site's vicinity while looking, so this is this buffer zone, looking at the same time at the different sampling date of your data. And the last map that I want to show you, okay, I can show it here. So for instance, let's imagine you have some additional data and it looks like there is quite a lot of it. So you can depict it using different symbols and/or colors. And as well, you can apply this custom grid you can see here, like I did. And then you can assess a bit more objectively how many quadrants do you actually have that, how many quadrants have actually been explored and what is the number of observation in each of them. So this can also give you a better idea which parts of the site needs to be explored in a more detail. Also, you can intersect layers, you can clip layers, merge them, do really interesting stuff with them. You can combine them with, I don't know, habitat maps, greenland cover maps. You can really play a lot with them and it's really great. And in the end, I try to be really, really quick because I already took too much time and I apologize for that. So, new share presentation. We were here. Okay, so if you do not see a presentation now, please feel free to tell me so. So the next few slides are basically just the, how should I say, something for you to remember what we went through while producing the map. And here are the further reading and other sources. And if you had fun today, I suggest that you go through this slide and take a look at the resources provided here. For instance, this first publication can be used as a sort of a cheat sheet There are some icons that are listed there with their functions that could help you while learning the basics. You can also find a brief GIS vocabulary there, so it can also come in handy. There are also links to really helpful GIS materials, the 3 of them, and they're really a good start for you to dive into the interesting world of the QGIS. And in the end, we've provided a reference to a really great publication that gives a really good overview of some basic cartography and mapping techniques. So you have all the links. The last one are basically just the sources I've used to produce the data. So I've finished for today. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to try and answer them. If by any chance we fail on that account today, or there are too many questions to get to them right now, we'll provide all the answers in a written form in the next few days. So don't worry, ask whatever you need to ask. You can always contact us later on. Here you can also find some info on the remote sensing support group, just if you want to contact us later on. Remember a little bit about what Clive told you. And basically, I want to thank you for your patience. I know it's not an easy thing to listen to all those, to get all the information in one go, but hopefully with the recorded session, you can, do it by yourself and in your own time. Thanks, guys. I'm finished. I'll stop sharing the screen and then we can move on. Sorry.
Thanks a lot, Marina. It was really a great presentation, and don't bother with some technical troubles. It just shows that we are a living community, not kind of bots, and it's not that easy to show it how it is going online. So I really appreciate that you show us Qgis and showing some different a kind of first glimpse on that.
And it was a pleasure.
And it is also very important that the idea behind this series of webinars is to show that remote sensing methods and GIS, including mapping, can be really inexpensive, or even you can do it for free, and it's relatively easy to use, and above all allow us to obtain accurate current data of great importance for biodiversity conservation. And what is important here in Qgis and generally in the GIS software, it's not just a map. You've got a whole database, and the map is just the final product. So you can analyze, handle this data, share it, whatever. So it is important to remember that Qgis is a system. It's not just mapping program. We still have something like 10 minutes for our Q&A session, and I've seen in the box that there were some questions that are already answered there. Thank you all for all of these questions. And now I would like to pass the mic to our chair, to Clive, to see if he found some interesting questions that we could ask Marina or other panelists online. Hello, Clive, again.
Okay, yeah, okay, thanks, Wojtek. What I will do is give Marina 5 minutes to get over the presentation, which was great. Thank you, Marina. And I will hand over to one of our panelists, who is Andre Gross-Stoltenberg, who is a postdoctoral researcher at Gießen University in Germany. And he works for the Working Group for Landscape Ecology and Landscape Planning. So what Andre will do, he will pick up some of the questions in the Q&A. As we say, we only have 10 minutes, so we will not get through so many. But if you have other questions, please add them, and we will answer them via email, after the webinar is finished in the next few days. Okay, Andre.
So thanks, Clive, for the nice introduction, and also many thanks to Marina for the very nice presentation. Yeah, so I'm looking now at the questions in the Q&A session. There was one question about coordinate systems. We already answered it, but I think it's a very important point that to stress that you may get data with different coordinate systems or with different projections. So you always need to check which projection your raster vector data is in. You can always reproject data, but it should always be the same coordinate system. Otherwise, you will get very messy data. So your data is not there where you expect it to be, or the areas or the distances are not correct. So this would be this is a very important point.
Yeah, and if I can add also one other thing, if you have layers in different CRS systems, you won't be able to clip them, intersect them. Basically, you won't be able to work with them combined because they're basically located on different parts of your, let's say, georeferenced space, although they look like they're one over the other. So that's really an important question. And I'm sorry, there's just not enough time to show everything in the presentation. Yeah, please, sorry.
Yeah. No, the QGIS has a very nice feature. I mean, one of the nice features was the on-the-fly projection. So it appears to be nice. So other GIS systems are not that tolerant. And but that has also its disadvantages. So as Marina said, when you then want to work with the data, then then you see that you cannot intersect, or you cannot analyze them. And just a side note, well, QGIS links to other GIS software. There's a link to, for example, to GraphGIS, which is very powerful but more strict. There's a link to Saga GIS, and you can also import other toolboxes for mapping or for even hyperspectral data analysis. So I hope this question is answered. If not, then please let us know in the Q&A section. And I think there was another question about GPS collection software. So I mentioned that there is like an Android version of QGIS. There's QField, which we started working with recently, which works okay. But it has some limitations still. I think it's more like you cannot import direct, or you have to set up first your project in QGIS and then import it to QField. And one limitation that was mentioned in the Q&A that there's you cannot easily define drop-down lists. So there are many other, there's some other apps that you can use, and maybe Clive could comment on ODK, which I haven't worked with yet.
Yeah, I mean, we've used ODK in the Living Whales project, but as the data collection side of things. So, and we have combined the field data collected in ODK with, projecting it actually onto Google Earth. So it's, I mean, somebody asked, is it possible to have maybe a webinar on this type of stuff, on the handheld data collection? And I see no reason why not. We have specialists who develop these systems that we could ask to do a presentation or at least an introduction to how to get started with these things, which is always the most important thing. Once you get started and you know how to get started, you can sort of pick it up. Starting is often the most difficult thing. So yeah, I think it would be possible to do this.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So I just add another link to the Q&A about another app we use. It's also an Android app. It's SW Maps, which is fine. It's like a very lightweight app, which you can use for basic mapping. Of course, there are, again, some limitations. You cannot import rasters that easily. But if you want to play around with it, I think it's also quite useful. And you can also connect your, if you have a device to improve your GPS signal, you can also use it or connect it with this app, which is quite useful. But we also use Windows tablets because we think like Android also has some limitations, like sometimes the tablets are not supported anymore with Android updates, and we don't face this problem with Windows so much. So yeah, it's not the perfect solution for this. I think this was another important question. Then there was one about rendering web map services. And yeah, this is quite a technical question, true. So we face this problem as well. So sometimes in the field, yeah, depending on the server performance and the internet performance, and yeah, it's quite slow, but it can also relate to some QGIS settings. So I will add some links to the Q&A section. And because for these questions, you can also, for the very technical questions, there's a place at the Qgis website where you can look, or there's a forum in the community called Qgis Stack Exchange. And there well, the good thing is most problems you face, somebody has already faced before, and hopefully they already got answered on Qgis Stack Exchange. So I will add these links to the Q&A.
Thanks a lot, Andre, and all of our panelists, and Marina and Clive. Again, I still feel that our Q&A session was too short. So
my
please.
fault.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I think that there are quite a lot of more questions. So you can still write your questions after the webinar as well, and we will also check if there are any unanswered questions. So we'll keep in contact in between of these two last webinars, and I would like just in the end, I would like to share you the information about the next webinar, which will be presented by Clive Harford, our chair. I will just share my screen with the details. Okay, I hope it will work here. So here you got it. So maybe just one word from Clive about this webinar, because you are muted.
Okay, yeah. So this next webinar will be really an introduction into ImageJ, which is another open source software program, and it can be used for counting all sorts of things. Bird counts are particularly useful because there's lots of inaccuracies with the way we count birds in the field, but it can also be used for botanical surveys and things like this. So it will be an introduction again to an open source program of this type. Okay.
Thank you, Clive. Thank you, Marina and Andre, and all of you. That it was a bit longer, but I think that still quite a lot of people are here. So thanks a lot for your attention. It was a bit more technical one, so it's maybe not that easy, but you are strong. You are still here with us. So thanks a lot. We'll disseminate information about recording, Q&A, and this date of next seminar. And please stay with us. And after this webinar, we'll have kind of short summer break. But we have in mind, as Clive said, some new initiatives for site managers. So we'll keep in contact to inform you about it. Thanks a lot. And I think that I hope that you are not out for holidays in the beginning of July. So please plan your holiday just after the next webinar. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.